Greetings, my peeps, and welcome to the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. In this episode, Week 7 recap. So I'll be talking about WNBA negotiations. We'll talk about that some. Also, Candace Parker went on All the Smoke. She said a few things I want to kind of talk about here, so we'll do that as well. Flau'Jae Johnson. She faces her Team USA coach, Kara Lawson. So I'll talk a little bit about that. CP3 out as an LA Clipper. Talk about that also. And if I can squeeze it in, Giannis Antetokounmpo, all the hoopla going on with him. So I'll try and get that in also. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, guys, it's your boy GD back with the All Things Basketball with GD podcast. And guys, we are entering actually week 8, which means it's the NBA Cup quarterfinals, then the semis and the finals. So it's kind of a short week as far as the NBA itself, but a lot taking place. So nonetheless, but we will recap week 7. So let's get that underway right now. Before I go into the NBA, some women's basketball news that I want to get to first. So let us begin. WNBA negotiations, they're going on as we speak. So that's happening. And it's a few sticking points, guys. First of all, the housing. They no longer want to supply housing for the players, guys. Before they had, for a single player, they would give them access to a one-bedroom, so they would cover the cost of that, or they would be given a stipend. And it ranged from $1,177. That's the lowest one bedroom you can get. And actually Las Vegas of all places, all the way up to $2,647 for a New York apartment. No surprise there. You know, everything is expensive in New York. What can you do? So it's between that range there. And then if you're a player with child, and the child, you know, it's weird. The child is under 13 years old, then you get more money. So, and that would cover regular season all the way to the playoffs. So in the off season, you got to cover the costs. So they want to cut that out completely. And their thinking is, if we end up upping these salaries, why would we have to do that? So there's that. And then also they're talking about a $1 million base salary for your highest paid players, your max players. And they want to do a $5 million salary cap with the minimum at $225,000. So it's going to be kind of touch and go, because how many max players you can have? You can't have no more than 2 max players to get everybody on the salary. So it's a tricky situation with that salary cap they're putting forth. So there's that. And then also training camp. They want to start that in mid-March, which, you know, that's going to be an issue, guys, because your women's NCAA tournament, that happens in March. So there's that. And then also Unrivaled, they end early March. So you're basically having an Unrivaled player step right into training camp for the WNBA. So this is also a sticking point. The players don't want this. Trust me, they don't want this. And then here's my question. If you're starting the training camp early, are you still having the draft in April, even though you have the training camp? How can you have a training camp before you have the actual draft? So that's not jibing well with me. And it's not making a whole lot of sense. So we're going to see what happens as far as that goes. But those are the sticking points as far as the negotiations. Still haven't heard anything about the revenue sharing. So there's that also. But we'll see what happens, guys. But they're still negotiating. You have until, like I said, early January to get this ironed out. We'll see what happens. So there you go. All right. So that's that bit of business as far as the WNBA. Candace Parker. She goes on All the Smoke, of course, with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. She goes on there. It was a good episode. I thought it was good. She talked about a myriad of things, talked about family, talked about her time at University of Tennessee under the late, great Pat Summitt. Talk about her many surgeries she had to have. She said she had 10 knee surgeries, I believe 2 foot surgeries. So, yeah, so she had a lot done to her body there. And then also, too, here's the one, well, it was a few things that stuck out. They talked to her about an AP top 5 in women's college basketball history. And here's the top 5. Well, here's the starting 5 that they have. Candace Parker, Caitlin Clark, Cheryl Miller, Diana Taurasi, and Breanna Stewart. What do they all have in common but one? Multiple-time champions. One who isn't, Caitlin Clark. So there you go. So they asked her about that. They asked her how she felt about that starting 5. She said that Shamika Holdsclaw belongs in there. And guys, you know how I feel about Shamika Holdsclaw. An absolute dog. I mean, and it's funny because I started watching around the time of USC and Cheryl Miller and the McGee twins, also Cynthia Cooper. So right around that time, I was checking them out. Then after that, you go, in my case, I went away to college, kind of lost track, came back home, and then kind of got back into it, but not so much. Then I heard about this lady ball player coming out of Queens, playing that Christ the King, and how she was just killing it. 4 state championships and just running things. The top women basketball player in the country was Shamika Holdsclaw, who ends up going to Tennessee and absolutely turned that university around. Freshman of the year, 3 championships along the way. Then she gets paired. Well, she gets teammates like Tamika Catchings and then Samika Randall forming the 3 Meeks. So, yeah, so my love for women's basketball came back by me following Shamika Holdsclaw. So Candace Parker gives her props, and rightfully so. And she said she would take herself out of the starting lineup to put Shamika Holdsclaw in. That's how much reverence she has for her. And then she was asked to name her her top 5 women ballers. She named, of course, Cheryl Miller. That's always a name that always comes up. Cappie Pondexter. Cappie Pondexter is another name you don't hear a lot about, but you talk about a baller. I remember her playing for the Liberty, man. I thought we was going to get a chip with her, but it is what it is. But she is an absolute baller. Cappie Pondexter. Tina Thompson, of course. Candace likes her bigs, so she likes Tina Thompson. Tisha Pinachero. Yeah, that was a name that brought a smile to my face. You talk about a consummate point guard, flashy and all the things. Go on YouTube and find clips of Tisha Pinachero. Oh, man. A beast when it came to passing that ball. And then, of course, Shamika Holdsclaw. So that's her 5. So, again, Shamika Holdsclaw, I need to do a whole episode on her, on what she did for women's basketball. And again, I reiterate, I've said it many times, I'll say it again. Shamika Holdsclaw, what are you doing, Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame? She belongs there. She belongs there. So let's get with the program here. So Shamika Holdsclaw, salute to you, and hopefully somebody was listening to what Candace was saying about you, and I'll scream it from the rooftops as well. Shamika Holdsclaw belongs in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I'm just putting it out there. So, yeah, so she talked about that and much more. She talked about the WNBA negotiations, to which I agree. How is it that coaches are making well more than the players? What is that about? I understand. I get it in college. They're getting paid, thousands upon millions there. I understand that. But in the pro league, how is a coach making more than a player? I'm just saying. So there you go. But all in all, it's a good listen, guys. It's not all that long when you think about other people they've had on there. It's pretty concise, and it's a good listen. So go check it out when you get a chance. All right, so that's it for that. Let us continue. Flau'Jae Johnson for LSU. Now, and this is news that kind of went under the radar as far as me knowing about it. She played with Team USA this summer, and they played in the AmeriCup, the FIBA AmeriCup, and that was in Chile. And they did end up winning the gold. Only thing was, Flau'Jae didn't see much playing time. I think she only saw 3 minutes between the semifinals and the finals. So she did get a lot of run in the guard rotation. The guards in front of her were Olivia Miles for TCU, Hannah Hidalgo for Notre Dame, Michaela Blakes for Vanderbilt, and she's a scoring machine, guys. And then Gianna Neekins for USC. No, not USC, but UCLA. She's a senior guard there. So all these guards were getting the playing time ahead of Flau'Jae. And Flau'Jae, she took it hard. She even had a video that was put out there, how hard she was taking it. Her mother was there consoling her. And Kim Mulkey, let me see if I can find that sound from Kim Mulkey of her talking about what she had to endure upon her coming back to the program. But give me 1 second. Flau'Jae. Give me one second. Okay, I think I got it here. Okay, here it is. This is Coach Kim Mulkey of LSU talking about her player and what she was dealing with, Flau'Jae. Take a listen. Oop.
This date circled around.
Hold on.
You know, she didn't have a good experience with USA basketball with Kara this summer. And so she's had this date circled around, and you get nervous, right? You get nervous because you think she's going to try to come in here and do too much. And I was proud of how she handled herself. Had a conversation with her many times this summer, had a conversation with her before we came here. And I just winked at her and I said, just be you. Do what you do for LSU. Don't make it personal. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Just you in that purple uniform with those 3 letters speaks volumes.
All right, thank you.
So that was Kim Mulkey speaking about Flau'Jae and how she didn't have that great experience there with Team USA because of not being in the games, in the meaningful games, the semifinals and the finals, to which they did bring home gold. So here's what I'll say. Flau'Jae, she's a good player in her own right. Was she going to start ahead of Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo? Oh, I would say probably not. Should she have got some time along with Blakes and Nepkins? You can make that argument, sure. And Coach Steve Kerr ran into this problem himself, and he got a lot of heat for not playing guys like Jason Tatum, guys like Tyrese Halliburton. So it's going to come with the territory. And I hope Kara Lawson is built tough for this, because in 3 years, she's going to have a Team USA in the Olympics. And I'm telling you right now, if Caitlin makes it, I would imagine she will. The fans are going to be eyeballing the stat sheet to see how many minutes she plays and all the things. Also, Angel Reese's fan base is going to be clocking that as well, provided she makes the squad also. So, it's if she's having problems now, imagine when 2028 comes and you have, the big timers on there. You have the Aja Wilsons. You have the Breanna Stewarts there. You have the Naphesia Colliers there. Possibly Alyssa Thomas, maybe. I would think, provided health permits for all these players. So Paige Beckers, who I imagine will make. So, that all eyes are going to be on her. So the way she handles these things will go a long way as far as that goes. But Flau'Jae, she'll be all right. She'll be all right. And I actually saw the game that she played against Duke with LSU. And she was kind of quiet in the beginning, but in that fourth quarter, she caught fire. And of course, she had some choice things to say to Coach Lawson, to the crowd. Coach Lawson, she held herself in check and all the things. But Flau'Jae was fired up, and you kind of can't argue with that, but And then, you got the man boys on social media talking about, oh, she shouldn't be crying about it. They so emotional. You don't see Jason Tatum crying about it. I'm like, come on, man. What why are you even making that comparison right there? So, she's young and, this is an opportunity for her to represent her country. And she didn't get the playing time. Of course, there's going to be disappointment there. But thank goodness she has a strong people in her corner. Her mom's there. Of course, Coach Mulkey, of course. So able to, bring her back into the fold and build up her confidence again. And she's playing well this year. She's playing well. The team is playing well, undefeated so far. So there you go. But so I just wanted to touch on that. And just as a thing to file away, if you will, until actually I believe they're going to be competing actually in 2026 in a World Cup, I believe, Team USA. So we're going to see that even sooner than the Olympics, guys. So keep an eye out for this because this situation could flare up again for Coach Lawson. Cheryl Reeve had to go through it the last Olympic where she didn't really play Diana Taurasi. She didn't really play Jewel Lloyd, and the team still won gold. And then, of course, you had the people wanting Caitlin on there. And I'd still say those fans would have been upset because Caitlin was not going to get that playing time. So, again, file this away, guys. File this away. And we'll see what happens next year. So there you are. All right, guys. So that is it for the women's basketball news. Let us go, of course, to our players of the week. And we will start with the East. Jaylen Brown, who's having a fantastic year, guys, all things considered, for the Boston Celtics. He's the man now. Everybody knows it because no Jason Tatum. So, and he had one heck of a week, guys. His team went 4-0, beating my New York Knicks, where he dropped 42 on them. Good gracious. Also a game where Mikal Bridges went crazy. He had 35. He dropped 8 threes in that game, but it wasn't enough. Boston prevails. So they beat the Knicks at home. On the road, they beat Washington, beat the Lakers at their home, and then on the road, beating a tough Toronto team. So 4-0. He's averaged 34 points, nearly 7 rebounds, nearly 6 assists for the week. Shooting terrific from the field, guys, nearly 54%. And think about it. That's pretty impressive given the fact that everybody knows he's the man to stop. So pretty impressive on his part. Slightly under 50% from 3. You definitely like that. 8 for 17. And then from the free throw line, where he has trouble, guys, he made 24 free throws out of 27 attempts. That's great for him, guys. So definitely a fine week for Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Your player of the week in the East. Then in the West, how about Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets getting it over his teammate, Nikola Jokic? So that tells you what kind of week he had. His team went 3-1, guys. They did lose to Dallas the early part of the week and then ran off 3 in a row. Beating Indiana in Indiana, where he dropped 52 points, guys. 10 threes in that game. Good gracious. And then at Atlanta and at Charlotte. For the week, he averaged nearly 30 points per game, 7.5 assists, guys, and 4.5 rebounds, guys. Shot it terrific from the field, guys. For nearly 60%, 59.5%. Wow. And then from three, he was deadly, 18 for 29. Wow. And then of his 14 free throws, he misses only one. So Jamal Murray, the fact that he got it over Jokic, who I'll talk about his performances in the next episode when I do the second half. But Jamal Murray, a fine week for him. Your player of the week in the West. All right, guys. So let us continue. Top stories. Chris Paul out for the LA Clippers. They send him home, guys, after 21 games and a record of 5-16. They decided, you know what? We've had enough of the Chris Paul experiment. We're sending him home, and we'll work out wherever he wants to go. We'll accommodate him, whether we have to release him, whether we trade him, whatever the case, we will acquiesce to make things right for Chris Paul. And think about it, guys. Before I give you my thought, let me read to you the statement from Lawrence Frank, the GM for the Clippers. And let's hear what he had to say in that regard. So this is Lawrence Frank. We are parting ways with Chris, and he will no longer be with the team. We will work with him on the next step in his career, Frank said, careful to place accountability on his own shoulders. Chris is a legendary Clipper who had a historic career. I want to make one thing very clear. No one is blaming Chris for his underperformance. I accept responsibility for the record we have right now. There are a lot of reasons we've struggled. We're grateful for the impact Chris has made on the franchise. So that is from Lawrence Frank. Now you have former players who are coming to bat for him. A lot of them. So I will play for you a couple of those players. But first, before I give you that, let's hear the report that came in. And this is pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back.
Here's something on for me. A few days before his release, CP3 posted a screenshot on his Instagram story with the definition of the word leeway. Looking back, what was that all about?
Yeah, so that occurred from a game against the Dallas Mavericks, their last home game they played. It was in the fourth quarter. Kawhi Leonard is on a minute restriction, and sources told me that when he was guarding Klay Thompson, he was struggling when he got into the game after sitting down for a while. He was struggling keeping up with Klay Thompson. And so there was a timeout call late in that fourth quarter. And during the fourth quarter, and during that timeout, Chris Paul went to Kawhi Leonard and said, "Hey, man, are you fresh enough? Do you feel good? Do you feel like you can stick with Klay Thompson?" And he asked the teammates, he said, "Hey, y'all might want to switch this. Wait till he gets warm until he goes and guards Klay. Klay is killing us at that point." And so they ended up switching the matchup, the assignment. And so the next day, Jeff Van Gundy, assistant coach for the Clippers, he called a meeting with Chris Paul on the plane the next day, and he asked Chris Paul if he changed up the defensive assignment yesterday. And Chris said, "No, I didn't change up the assignment. I just suggested, hey, we might want to have somebody else guarding Klay right now because Kawhi is not warm yet." And so I was told that Jeff Van Gundy told Chris Paul, "Listen, you might have had leeway in other places to be able to, to change up defensive coverages, but you don't have that leeway here." And that was just one of the minor verbal incidents between Jeff Van Gundy and Chris Paul. That was one of a few in this brief span with the Clippers.
All right. So that's
something up for me.
That sound you heard was it was on the Amazon's In Studio show. And that was Chris Haynes, who does a fantastic job covering the NBA. And he was asked that by Taylor Rooks, who's doing a fantastic job as the studio host. So that was his response as far as one of the things that might have led to Chris Paul being let go. Now, here's Melo on the situation. Melo, who's actually kind of been in that situation per se that Chris Paul has dealt with, where, he's a guy who's been at a franchise where they kind of sandbagged him, if you will. So this is Melo talking about it. Hold on.
It's a up situation. Imagine CP right now. He's embarrassed at my own organization that I brought back to relevance. It's on me. We ain't talking about what I'm doing right now or what have you done for me lately. You with my legacy now. This is the up side of the sport. And I know a lot of people gonna say, well, Chris Paul is older, but you still don't do that. You should treat that with a level of respect, because now you playing with somebody's legacy. It ain't about wins and losses right now. I should have enough respect for you and your legacy not to let you go out like this. You got 4 months here. The guy's retiring in April. So what's his next most logical step career-wise? Go be with your family, bro. Lock into Chris. It's going to be an ego hit because you ain't going to want to go out like that because it's embarrassing. But what's going to keep you strong is your kids. I get to live through my son right there. And I'm speaking from experience. And he's similar because he got a son that's on his way up too. The CP situation,
So that was Melo on the situation. Now here's his former teammate, Blake Griffin, on the situation as well. He plays it straight down the middle. So here is Blake Griffin.
To be honest, I think of really another word. Obviously shocked at first, but disappointed. I'm disappointed for Chris Paul, but I'm disappointed in the Clippers organization. I mean, Chris Paul was a guy who came to the Clippers when DeAndre and I were first and second year guys. He brought a winning culture. He taught us how to operate in the NBA and how to take every game seriously, how to take your body seriously, that there was no detail that was too small. And we weren't perfect, right? Like we didn't ultimately win a championship. I know that. I'm reminded of it every day. And CP and I didn't always see eye to eye, but I'm disappointed because we got to a franchise that was synonymous with jokes, right? You heard the Clippers and you heard cursed. And again, we didn't win a championship, but we did create a culture and an environment that people respected. Every year you knew the Clippers were going to be competitive. And Chris Paul for 20 years has been the same player. He's been about winning. And re-signing with the Clippers, this was supposed to be his moment. I'm coming back to LA. I'm giving it one last go. And for him to not get to walk out on his own terms from the franchise that he chose to go to end his career is extremely disappointing. But I think the biggest reason I'm disappointed is what Chris said. No communication with Ty Lue. And even more than that, no communication. I talked to CP Wednesday. I talked to him yesterday. I talked to him today. No communication with Steve Ballmer. And that's like the disappointing thing for me. I'm just disappointed.
So that is his former teammate, Blake Griffin. Here's my thoughts on it. Chris Paul, he's an elder statesman now. So I believe you bring Chris Paul in. I think you bring him into a situation with younger players, maybe a coach, maybe not a seasoned coach per se, but a coach, kind of young to this So I actually thought that going back to the Clippers was not the best move for him. I understand. I get it. That's the place where you really showed up and showed out. You know, you were there for 6 years, 5 All-Star appearances. 2 times you led the league in assists as a Clipper. 3 times you led the league in steals as a Clipper. And of course, like Blake Griffin said, you know, you had him there, CP3 with Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, you know, that Lob City that kind of really changed the way you looked at the Clippers. And Chris Paul was a big part of that. So I didn't understand him going back there to a veteran situation. I didn't understand that. I think a place where he probably should have went, he should have took on a similar role that he had with the San Antonio Spurs, where he played every game, by the way. So you come back to a place where you started and you're not even playing the games like that, let alone starting. You're not even playing. You know, that's not good. 8 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Of course, that's going to grade on him. And then Chris Paul is a vocal person. He's going to let you know how he's feeling. He's going to be very verbal. So there's that. So, and the fact that they're losing and you're not really playing me. So that's going to be an issue with him. So I get that. I get that from Chris Paul. I thought the best situation for him was to go to a similar situation like he had with the Spurs. And I can only think of one team, the Washington Wizards. He should have went there. In fact, you could have started Chris Paul in the backcourt with CJ McCollum. And you had a nice backcourt there. You bring him in, you let Bob Carrington learn from a master of his craft, Chris Paul. Let him, you know, be an apprentice to him for a year. You see what Stephon Castle did as he started the season, how he balled out. And that's from being at the knee of a Chris Paul for a season. So I thought going to a place like Washington made more sense than going to the Clippers. It didn't make sense to me. You know, James Harden's there, and he's going to get the majority of the burn at point. They weren't going to have you both in the backcourt at the same time. So I just didn't understand. I didn't. So, you know, and then you got these executives, of course, anonymous, talking about Chris Paul is a acquired taste. You know, he's long in the tooth. He's this, he that. It's funny. Last year, he started every single game. Nobody was calling him long in the tooth. But now, provided it's a year later, but he went there with not the same opportunities that he had with San Antonio. So that's why it didn't make sense to me. So that's all I'm going to say for that. But do I think this is the end for Chris Paul? I think, like Melo said, he has a lot of pride. He doesn't want to go out like this. So I think he'll try and go somewhere else and try to, you know, build upon what was meant to be in LA with the Clippers. So I don't think the book is totally closed on him. We'll see how it goes. You know, once injuries, which takes place in the league, once a team lose a point guard or two, you're going to need somebody to step in. I'm sure Chris Paul's phone will ring, even at his advanced stage. So there you go. I'll just leave it there. But tough break for Chris Paul. Tough break. But we'll see what happens with him. So there you go with that. All right. So, and then the last item I'll talk about, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Guys, he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with a calf injury. And this happened in the first quarter, actually, on December 3rd, in a win versus the Detroit Pistons. So it was a big game, playing the top team in the East. And he kind of stumbled a bit, and there you go. So he's out with the calf injury. But the bigger news is that he took down his social media. He wants to. Now, initially, when he took down all of that stuff, it was being bandied about. He wanted to get traded. He wanted out of Milwaukee, but he has actually come around on that, where that's not the case. In fact, he spoke to Chris Haynes. He spoke to Chris Haynes about it. I'll see if I can find the clip of him speaking to Chris Haynes. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, this. Okay. Oh, that's too long. There was a shorter clip that was out there. Oh, I'll just read it. So, no, that's not it. Okay. So, oh yeah, it was an article. That I sent myself. Okay. And it's here. Okay. All right. So I have it. So he addresses the situation to Chris Haynes, and this is what he said. I did reach out to Giannis and he spoke to me about just being where his feet are planted. He said that is where his focus is at. He said there are people who see a door and they want to hurry up and escape through that door. But I see a wall and I want to run through the wall and make things work. That's my focus right now. I want to run through a wall, make things work, get healthy, and try to be there for my team. And he said he doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes with the front office or what they're looking at doing as far as his future goes. He said his focus is getting healthy and being there for his team and not running from situations. So, and then of course, and this lines up with what he said back in October when, of course, he was getting the questions. I think I've communicated with my teammates, communicated with the people I respect and love, that the moment I step on this court and in this facility, I wear this jersey. The rest does not matter. I'm locked into wherever I have in front of me. Even if in 6 or 7 months I change my mind, I think that's human too. You're allowed to make any decision you want. I'm locked in. I'm locked into this team. I'm locked into these guys, to this group, and to my coaching staff, and to myself. So, and he also said, he told him he scrubbed his social media, not in response to the Bucks' struggles, but had done much of it several weeks earlier because he thought he was putting too much of himself on those platforms. He said right now, what's important in his life is confidentiality and privacy. So, yeah. So that's why he's gone the route he's gone. Me, I'm going to take him at his word. I'm going to take him at his word. If he did all of that because he wants to be more private, I'm going to take him at his word. And I'm going to say all this trade talk, all this stuff, I'm going to say this is just media banter, just. And it's funny because when you see a guy do this, and I reported last year, LeBron, he got off of social media for a little while. So there comes a time where people do that. And I noticed Angel Reese, she had to do it for a spell, and people started to think, she's getting off of social media only to fool everybody. And then she ends up doing the Victoria's Secret thing and then the other stuff she's into. So y'all just fell in. Oh, when she got on Vogue magazine. Yeah. So y'all just fell into the trap. So I say all that to say I'm going to be in a wait and see mode with Giannis. I'm going to take him at his word. He's doing this for this particular reason. I'll hold him to that. If I have to come back later and do a mea culpa because he fooled me, then I'll do that as well. So I'll just leave it where it is. But for now, he has to get healthy, guys. He's got the calf injury. And then everybody says he wants to go to Knicks. Here's the problem. It seems like they don't want Karl Anthony Towns. So the next best thing, you look at the wings. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. But here's the problem. You can't deal Mikal Bridges because he just re-signed. You can't deal him until February. So basically this gives you almost 2 months to play around with where other people can swoop in and make offers. So if he's adamant about saying it's the Knicks or nothing, then that's a whole nother deal. But that's putting the cart before the horse. Like I said, he says he's focusing in, guys, on getting healthy and getting back on the court for the Bucks. So I'm going to leave it where it is because that's what he said. So I could be looking foolish in less than a couple of months or so. So we'll see. All right, guys, thank you for listening. As always, all things basketball with gd.com. All things basketball with gd.com is the website. There you'll find my clips, my full episodes there. Also, donate, guys. Donate to the show. I have a whole page where you can donate. Buy me a coffee, PayPal, and Spotify donate. Also in the scroll is my Cash App, $GD, I'm on all the podcast platforms, Apple, all the things, YouTube channel as well. Also, my social media is Instagram, it's TikTok, it is some Facebook, some Blue Sky, and that's pretty much it, guys. All right, so I'll bring you the second half shortly, where I'll be talking about the injuries, guys. We got guys that's come back from injury, guys dealing with injuries, performances, guys. We'll talk about that also. Some milestones that's been reached. We'll talk about that. Also, too, guys, we have a passing. We'll talk about that. Also, a retirement. We'll talk about that as well. All that and more. So I thank you for listening. As always, we'll talk soon. Take care.